Minneapolis-St. Paul is a major metropolitan area built around the Mississippi, Minnesota and St. Croix rivers. The area is commonly known as the Twin Cities for its two largest cities, Minneapolis, the city with the largest population in Minnesota, and St. Paul, the state capital. It is an example of twin cities in the sense of geographical proximity. Both cities anchor the third largest economic center in the Midwest after Chicago and Detroit. There are several different definitions of the region. Many refer to the Twin Cities as the seven-county region, which is governed under the Metropolitan Council regional governmental agency and planning organization. The United States Office of Management and Budget officially designates 16 counties as the Minneapolis-St. Paul, Bloomington, MNY metropolitan statistical area, the 16th largest in the United States. The entire region known as the Minneapolis-St. Paul MNY combined statistical area has a population of 3,866,768, the 14th largest, according to 2015 census estimates. Despite the twin moniker, both cities are independent municipalities with defined borders and quite distinct from each other. Minneapolis is somewhat younger with modern skyscrapers, while St. Paul has been likened to a European city with quaint neighborhoods and a vast collection of well-preserved late Victorian architecture. Minneapolis was influenced by its early Scandinavian and Lutheran heritage and hosts the largest Somali population in North America. St. Paul was influenced by its early French, Irish and German Catholic roots and currently hosts a thriving Hmong population. Populated places, counties. The Minneapolis-St. Paul metropolitan area includes a total of 16 counties, of which 14 are located in Minnesota and 2 in Wisconsin. Note: counties that are bolded are under jurisdiction of the Metropolitan Council. Numbers in parentheses are 2013 census estimates. Counties that are italicized were added to the metropolitan area when the Office of Management and Budget revised its delineations of metropolitan statistical areas in 2013. Cities and suburbs. There are approximately 218 incorporated municipalities located within the Twin Cities metropolitan region. This includes census-designated places along with villages in Wisconsin, but excludes unincorporated towns in Wisconsin, known as civil townships in other states. Estimates are as of 2013 for cities with 25,000 or more inhabitants. Places with over 100,000 inhabitants: Minneapolis, St. Paul. Places with 50,000 to 99,999 inhabitants. Places with 25,000 to 49,999 inhabitants. Places with 10,000 to 24,999 inhabitants. Places with fewer than 10,000 inhabitants. Combined statistical area. The Minneapolis-St. Paul MNY combined statistical area is made up of 19 counties in Minnesota and 2 counties in Wisconsin. The statistical area includes 2 metropolitan areas and 3 micropolitan areas. As of the 2010 census, the CSA had a population of 3,684,928. The CSA definition encompasses 11,132.44 square miles of area. Components: metropolitan statistical areas: Minneapolis-St. Paul, Bloomington, MNY, St. Cloud. Micropolitan statistical areas: Hutchinson, Fairburn, Northfield, Red Wing. Rivalry. Minneapolis and St. Paul have competed since they were founded, resulting in some duplication of effort. After St. Paul completed its elaborate cathedral in 1915, Minneapolis quickly followed up with the equally ornate Basilica of St. Mary in 1926. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the rivalry became so intense that an architect practicing in one city was often refused business in the other. The 1890 United States Census even led to the two cities arresting and/or kidnapping each other's census takers, in an attempt to keep either city from outgrowing the other. The rivalry could occasionally erupt into intercity violence, as happened at a 1923 game between the Minneapolis Millers and the St. Paul Saints, both baseball teams of the American Association. In the 1950s, both cities competed for a Major League Baseball franchise, and there was a brief period in the mid-1960s where the two cities could not agree on a common calendar for daylight saving time, resulting in a period of a few weeks where people in Minneapolis were 1 hour behind anyone living or traveling in St. Paul. The city's mutual antagonism was largely healed by the end of the 1960s, aided by the simultaneous arrival in 1961 of the Minnesota Twins of the American League and the Minnesota Vikings of the National Football League, both of which identified themselves with the state as a whole and not with either of the major cities. Since 1961, it has been common practice for any major sports team based in the Twin Cities to be named for Minnesota as a whole. In terms of development, the two cities remain distinct in the progress, with Minneapolis absorbing new and avant-garde architecture while St. Paul continues to carefully integrate new buildings into the context of classical and Victorian styles. Culture. Outdoors. There are numerous lakes in the region, and cities in the area have some very extensive park systems for recreation. Organized recreation includes the Great River Energy Bicycle Festival, the Twin Cities Marathon, and the U.S. Pond Hockey Championships. Some studies have shown that area residents take advantage of this, and are among the most physically fit in the country, though others have disputed that. Nonetheless, medicine is a major industry in the region and the southeasterly city of Rochester, as the University of Minnesota has joined other colleges and hospitals in doing significant research, and major medical device manufacturers started in the region. Technical innovators have brought important advances in computing, including the Cray line of supercomputers. It is common for residents of the Twin Cities area to own or share cabins and other properties along lakes and forested areas in the central and northern regions of the state, and weekend trips up north happen through the warmer months. Ice fishing is also a major pastime in the winter, although each year some overambitious fishermen find themselves in dangerous situations when they venture out onto the ice too early or too late. Hunting, snowmobiling, ATV riding and numerous other outdoor activities are also popular. This connectedness with the outdoors also brings a strong sense of environmentalism to many Minnesotans. In 2011 and 2012, the American College of Sports Medicine named Minneapolis-St. Paul the healthiest metropolitan area in America. Demography. Place of birth. Approximately 93.2% of the metropolitan area's population was native to the United States. Approximately 92.6% were born in the U.S., while 0.6% were born in Puerto Rico, U.S. territory, or born abroad to American parents. The rest of the population were foreign-born. The highest percentages of immigrants came from Asia, Latin America, and Africa. Smaller percentages of newcomers came from Europe, other parts of North America, and Oceania. Religion. Minneapolis-St. Paul is also a major center for religion in the state, especially Christianity. The state headquarters of the missionary efforts of 4 churches are found here: the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of St. Paul and Minneapolis, the Episcopal Diocese of Minnesota, the Presbyterian Synod of Lakes and Prairies, and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The Presbyterian and LDS churches both have missions in St. Paul, Minneapolis and Bloomington. The headquarters of the former American Lutheran Church, Evangelical Lutheran Church, Lutheran Free Church and the Augustana Evangelical Lutheran Church were located in Minneapolis. The headquarters of Augsburg Fortress Publishing House still is. The Minneapolis Area Synod and the St. Paul Area Synod are the first and third largest synods of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, respectively. The Evangelical Free Church of America has its headquarters in Bloomington, and the Association of Free Lutheran Congregations is headquartered in Plymouth, along with its seminary and a Bible school. The Twin Cities are home to several synagogues serving the Jewish population, which is concentrated in the western Minneapolis suburbs of Golden Valley, St. Louis Park, Plymouth and Minnetonka. There is also a Hindu temple located in the Twin Cities suburb of Maple Grove. A recent influx of immigrants from Laos and northern Africa has brought many more religions to the area. There are several Islamic masjids in the area. There is a temple for the religion of Eckankar in the suburb of Chanhassen known as the Temple of Ek. In addition, many Hmong and Tibetan Buddhist peoples live in St. Paul. A Hmong Buddhist temple opened in suburban Roseville in 1995. The LDS St. Paul, Minnesota temple opened in Oakdale, a suburb east of St. Paul, in 2000. There are several very strong Unitarian Universalist communities such as the First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, as well as several pagan and Buddhist groups. The cities of St. Paul and Minneapolis have been called Paganistan due to the large numbers of pagans living there. There are an estimated 20,000 pagans living in the Twin Cities area. The Old Belief Society opened a temple in northeast Minneapolis in 2010. Minneapolis is where the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association started and was home for more than 50 years. Sports. The following table shows the professional sports teams in the Minneapolis-St. Paul MSA. The Twin Cities is one of 13 American metropolitan areas to have teams in all 4 major sports: MLB, NFL, NBA and NHL. To avoid favoring either of the Twin Cities, most teams based in the area use only the word Minnesota in the name, rather than Minneapolis or St. Paul. In 1992, Minneapolis hosted Super Bowl 26. It was the farthest north that a Super Bowl has ever been played. The NFL picked Minneapolis to host Super Bowl 52 in 2018. The Twin Cities host 3 nationally competing roller derby leagues: the Minnesota Roller Girls of the Women's Flat Track Derby Association Division I, the North Star Roller Girls of WFTDA Division II, and Minnesota Men's Roller Derby, a league of the Men's Roller Derby Association. MNRG and NSRG possess 4 home teams each: the Dagger Dolls, Garter Belts, Rockets, and Atomic Bombshells of MNRG, and the Banger Sisters, Delta Delta Die, Kilmore Girls, and Violent Femmes of NSRG, as well as 2 traveling teams each. MMRD possesses 3 home teams: the Gentlemen's Club, Destruction Workers, and Thunderjacks, and 2 traveling teams. The annual Twin Cities Marathon is held in the fall, with a course running through Minneapolis and St. Paul. Minneapolis was the birthplace of rollerblade and is a center for inline skating, as well as home to the most golfers per capita of any city in the U.S. Additionally, water skiing got its start on Lake Pepin, a short distance southeast of the metropolitan area. Some other sports teams gained the names from being in Minnesota before relocating. The Los Angeles Lakers get the name from once being based in Minneapolis, the city of lakes. The Dallas Stars also derived the present name from the tenure as a Minnesota team, the Minnesota North Stars. Politics. The Republican National Committee held their national nominating convention at the Xcel Energy Center in St. Paul in 2008. Prior, both cities had combined to submit bids to host both the 2008 Democratic National Convention and the 2008 Republican National Convention. They competed against Denver and New York to host the Democratic Convention, and against New York, Cleveland and Tampa to host the Republican Convention. Previously, Minneapolis was host to the 1892 Republican National Convention. Economy. The Minneapolis-St. Paul area is home to 16 of Minnesota's 17 Fortune 500 headquarters: United Health Group, Target, Best Buy, SuperValu, CHS, 3M, U.S. Bancorp, General Mills, Land O'Legs, Xcel Energy, Ameriprise Financial, C.H. Robinson Worldwide, Mosaic, Thrivent Financial, Ecolab, and St. Jude Medical. Large private companies include Cargill, Carlson, Anderson, Holiday Station Stores. Foreign companies with U.S. headquarters in the Twin Cities include Amia, Allianz, Canadian Pacific, Coliplast, Medtronic, Pearson VUE, Pentair and RBC. The area has the second largest economy in the Midwest, behind only Chicago. The metro area continues to grow at a rapid pace. Currently, the Twin Cities is the second largest medical device manufacture center in North America. In August 2013, Minneapolis-St. Paul appeared on Forbes magazine's list of best places for business and careers. CNBC ranked Minnesota as the top state for business in 2015. History. The first European settlement in the region was near what is now known as the town of Stillwater, Minnesota. The city is approximately 20 miles from downtown St. Paul and lies on the western bank of the St. Croix River, which forms the border of central Minnesota and Wisconsin. Another settlement that began fueling early interest in the area was the outpost at Fort Snelling, which was constructed from 1820 to 1825 at the confluence of the Minnesota River and the Mississippi River. Fort Snelling held jurisdiction over the land south of St. Anthony Falls, thus a town known as St. Anthony grew just north of the river. For several years, the only European resident to live on the south bank of the river was Colonel John H. Stevens, who operated a ferry service across the river. As soon as the land area controlled by Fort Snelling was reduced, new settlers began flocking across to the new village of Minneapolis. The town grew quickly, and Minneapolis and St. Anthony eventually merged. On the eastern side of the Mississippi, a few villages such as Pig's Eye and Lambert's Landing developed and would soon grow to become St. Paul. Natural geography played a role in the settlement and development of the two cities. The Mississippi River Valley in this area is defined by a series of stone bluffs that line both sides of the river. St. Paul grew up around Lambert's Landing, the last place to unload boats coming upriver at an easily accessible point. Some 7 miles downstream from St. Anthony Falls, the geographic feature that, due to the value of its immense water power for industry, defined the location of Minneapolis and its prominence as the Mill City. The falls can be seen today from the Mill City Museum, housed in the former Washburn A. Mill. which was among the world's largest mills in its time. The oldest farms in the state are located in Washington County, the easternmost county on the Minnesota side of the metropolitan area. Joseph Haskell was Minnesota's first farmer, harvesting the first crops in the state in 1840 on what is now part of Afton Township on Trading Post Trail. The Grand Excursion, a trip into the upper Midwest sponsored by the Rock Island Railroad, brought more than 1,000 curious travelers into the area by rail and steamboat in 1854. The next year, in 1855, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow published the Song of Hiawatha, an epic poem based on the Ojibwe legends of Hiawatha. A number of natural area landmarks were included in the story, such as Lake Minnetonka and Minnehaha Falls. Tourists, inspired by the coverage of the Grand Excursion in eastern newspapers and those who read Longfellow's story, flocked to the area in the following decades. At one time, the region also had numerous passenger rail services, including both interurban streetcar systems and interstate rail. Due to the width of the river it points further south, the Minneapolis-St. Paul area was briefly one of the few places where the Mississippi could be crossed by railroad. A great amount of commercial rail traffic also ran through the area, often carrying grain to be processed at mills in Minneapolis or delivering other goods to St. Paul to be transported along the Mississippi. St. Paul had long been at the head of navigation on the river, prior to a new lock and dam facility being added upriver in Minneapolis. Passenger travel hit its peak in 1888 with nearly 8 million traversing to and from the St. Paul Union Depot. This amounted to approximately 150 trains daily. Before long, other rail crossings were built farther south and travel through the region began to decline. In an effort by the rail companies to combat the rise of the automobile, some of the earliest streamliners ran from Chicago to Minneapolis, St. Paul, and eventually served distant points in the Pacific Northwest. Today, the only vestige of this interstate service comes by Amtrak's Empire Builder train, running once daily in each direction. It is the railroad's busiest long-distance train and is named after James J. Hill, a railroad tycoon who settled on Summit Avenue in St. Paul at what is now known as the James J. Hill House. Like many northern cities that grew up with the Industrial Revolution, Minneapolis and St. Paul experienced shifts in their economic base as heavy industry declined, especially in the 1960s and 1970s. Along with the economic decline of the 60s and 70s came population decline in the central city areas, white flight to suburbs, and, in the summer of 1967, race riots on Minneapolis's north side. By the 1980s and 1990s, however, Minneapolis and St. Paul were frequently cited as former Rust Belt cities that had made successful transitions to service, high technology, finance, and information economies.